voice actors from your favorite anime, video games, and cartoons are playing Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition every Wednesday on a new podcast called The Dungeon Booth. The first 11 episodes bring together the English voice actors from the hit anime series My Hero Academia, including the voices of Eraserhead, Chargebolt, Mandalay of the Wild Wild Pussycats, and the Invisible Girl. In the Dungeon Booth, these voice actors become original player characters in a wheels-off D&D adventure full of combat, discovery, intrigue, amateurish attempts at romance, and professionally timed fart jokes. And when each game ends, the next game begins with an all-new entertaining cast of voice actors ready to jump into the booth. So go listen today and every Wednesday on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, or on their website at thedungeonbooth.com. Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons & Dragons, from the weirdest water to the wisest wise men. And today we're talking about Wyverns and Farie Dragons.
The Dungeoncast. So yeah, dragons today, kinda.
More dragons.
More dragons. It's 2019. It's a new year. Happy New Year, everyone. And
do we want to make it official what we were calling it off
yes,
record?
I officially want to dub 2019 as the year of the dragon.
Get ready, everyone.
You guys have been asking for dragon lore, and I'm now saying fuck it, dragon lore.
Time.
So
dragon
every
lore.
month this year, we're going to be doing at least one major dragon episode.
We're hitting chromatics. We're hitting
metallics.
metal dudes. We're hitting other ones.
We're doing individual dragons as well. So yes, we're gonna get a metallic dragons part 2, a chromatic dragons part 2, and then we're gonna start diving into the lore on individual dragons, red dragons, blue dragons, etc. We're also gonna be doing dragonkin like today. We're doing some dragonkin, the Wyverns or Wyverns and Farie Dragons. And yeah, so let's just get into it.
We're going to grease these wheels and set a precedent for the year of the dragon.
Indeed. So let's start.
I think it was funny. It's the year of the boar, actually.
It's actually the year of the boar, but not on the Dungeoncast. It's the year of the dragon here.
Yeah, so. New podcast. Who dis? Not
so,
really.
So let's start with Wyverns or Wyverns. It can be pronounced either way, and I kind of go back and forth. It just depends on how I feel.
I'm going to say Wyverns the whole episode probably because that's how I've always said it. You can say Wyverns, and we'll incite fiery fuel in the comment section.
If you keep calling them Wyverns, I'm just going to start calling them Wyverns.
Okay, then I'll switch it. I'm gonna cross you up. I'm gonna break your ankles this episode.
So a wyvern is a dragon-like flying lizard with a stinging tail and sharp teeth. They usually stand about 15 foot in length and weigh about a ton at full growth.
That's cool.
And their coloring ranges from like gray to rusty brown. So they're like mini dragons in a way.
So think of like a pallet of water is a ton. It's literally 2,000 pounds, right?
Right.
Can you imagine that falling on you?
Oh yeah, well that's how you die.
Most adventurers die by falling
exactly.
Wyverns.
It's a problem. Like we don't talk about it enough, but it's a problem.
We don't talk about it, but adventurers like 25% of adventurers die from falling wyverns.
So wyverns are the cousins of dragons, but they're not themselves considered to be true dragons. True dragons are really limited to the metallic dragons, the chromatic dragons, and depending on the lore, gem dragons, which we'll have to touch on another day.
Is there like hate against wyverns for not having 4 legs or whatever?
Not hate, but that is one of the things that separate themselves from true dragons.
Yeah. I mean, they're not. The dragons aren't looking down upon wyverns like you only have 2 legs.
Dragons definitely look down upon wyverns.
Okay.
But they're related, but like very distantly. So dragons always have a tendency to treat like others within the family tree of dragonkind a little bit better than everyone else.
Yeah, like dragonborns and stuff. Like you have a chance of like getting on its good side.
Right. I'm not sure how much that extends to wyverns because wyverns are basically, they lack any intelligence. They're like animals.
Oh,
they can't speak or anything like that.
So there's more of like a beast than a persona.
Very much so. So also wyverns are probably the most commonly seen of the various dragonkin outside of maybe pseudo dragons, which we'll talk about in another episode.
Okay.
But I think you're familiar with pseudo dragons. You can take them as a familiar. They're basically miniature dragons about the size of a cat.
They like hang out on your shoulder and
and they're intelligent. Yeah, so
that's more like a warlock pact or whatever, right?
You can or you can use I think you can use the find familiar spell, but you might be right. It might be more towards the warlock because they get the special familiars.
Yeah.
But anyways, a very notable difference between wyverns and actual dragons is the fact that wyverns only have 4 appendages, while true dragons have 6. So, like you were saying, wyverns don't have 4 arms.
I was like, wings. We're counting the wings.
Dragons have 2 back legs, 2 front arms, and 2 wings.
So they're considered arms and not like more legs.
Yes,
Arms,
they
leg?
are, and
Okay.
this has to do with elbows versus knees. So, like
Oh,
in the
I
real
see.
in the real
The
actual
bandages.
world, I think the only mammals that have 4 legs or 4 knees are elephants.
Oh.
They actually have 4 knees. All other animals that are quadruped have the 2 back knees, and then their front legs are basically like arm appendages. They have
Oh,
elbows.
yeah. So like a cheetah.
Yeah, like a cheetah or a dog or a lion or
That's-
any other
hey.
quadruped that isn't an elephant.
I'm sorry, I called them bendages. Let's move on.
Appendages.
No, I called them bendages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, and I meant the part that bends.
Right.
So, I'm sorry, medical
Joint?
majors. Yeah.
Joint. So dragons, again, they have 2 back legs, 2 front arms, and 2 wings, while wyverns only have front wings and back legs.
Okay.
Also, wyverns do not have a breath weapon, which is like the closer related you are to dragons, the more likely you are to have a breath weapon.
Right, like
Is
dragonborn.
Generally, how I see it.
So wyverns have the little so they have the wings, but they have like the little claw on it, right? I think
Yeah,
I've
they
seen
do.
that.
Kind of like a bat.
Yeah.
Or gargoyle, I guess. I don't
Just
know.
for back scratching.
Yeah. So a second notable difference between wyverns and their true draconic counterparts is the intelligence level, which we kind of touched on.
Yeah.
So dragons, for the most part, are noted for their exceptionally high and even superhuman levels of intellect.
Mm-hmm.
Wyverns, on the other hand, are of an intelligence level more comparable to a dog. So like
Okay.
a 5 or 6. They can understand commands, often more likely in draconic, but cannot speak themselves, and they act far more on instinct than reason and are essentially like animalistic hunters or predators.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So they're the intelligence level of like a I've heard dogs be compared to like 3-year-olds or like 4-year-olds in
Right.
terms of like being able to understand language. So or like a parrot,
That's
like a
a-
macaw.
That's a decent rule of thumb. One of the problems, or not problems, one of the things about intelligence is it's not, even though we like to think of it this way, it's not really a spectrum. You know what I mean? It's not like a sliding scale where one creature is necessarily this much more intelligent than another.
Oh yeah, it's like that Albert Einstein quote where he's like, if you judge a fish on its ability to climb a tree or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you think it's an
The fact
idiot?
is there are different kinds of intelligence. You know, there's like social intelligence, there's communication intelligence, there's problem solving and reasoning, and these are all separate things. Some animals are really, really high, like human level high on some of these things, while being
Yeah.
abysmally low on all the others.
Yeah, jar opening. I would argue octopus are better than humans.
Exactly.
I've seen them do that
Very
shit
much
like
so.
1,000 different ways.
Right. While a dog has way, way higher emotional intelligence, especially when it comes to communicating with humans. So, that being said,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. So that's the thing about intelligence, but I would say wyverns are probably on the level about dogs.
Okay.
Dog level.
So they really love you.
Except for the emotional part. They're very unempathetic. We're actually going to get into that a little bit.
Oh, okay. I was about to start asking questions. I'll wait.
Okay. So the wyvern is not a D&D original. It's actually a monster from ancient European mythology. Its appearance varies depending on the region.
Okay.
And it can vary, I won't say wildly, but a fair amount. So it can be D&D-like, where it has 2 back legs and then 2 wings. It can be... a wyvern can just be another name for dragons, and it is a dragon with breath weapon and all 6 appendages.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that, and it got confusing for me before my D&D experience.
Yeah, I've seen wyvern images where it's like 2 front arms, no back legs, and 2 wings.
Okay.
So it's like almost like crawls on the floor. Like it's really
like
weird
a
looking.
snake with front arms?
Yeah, it's like a snake with front arms and wings. That's
Okay.
exactly like so it. There isn't like this concrete mythological creature called the wyvern. Like it's really all over the place.
It almost sounds like you remember the Eugoliths episode where we're talking about like how the different snake stuff had like like, you know how they could have like maybe there's one with like 4 arms or whatever and they're all snakes like at the end?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like the wild variations.
Oh,
like,
you're thinking of the UNT.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
the
said
UNT.
Eugoliths.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the UNT. It's actually a fair comparison where
Okay.
it can be any number of things, but it's all UNT.
Okay, so is there a standard for D&D?
The standard is the
back legs
the
and
back legs, 2 front wings, no
Okay.
breath weapon.
No breath weapon.
So
They have like a frill, huh? Like on their...
they can.
Okay.
You know, that all comes out to flavor and whatnot. You know?
Okay.
So, yeah. Wyverns in the wild tend to make their homes along cliff sides that reside over forests, jungles, or plains. Basically, a place where they can be safe up above because they love to fly and they love
Okay.
to be safe. But they can also feast upon the many beasts of the wood,
Cool.
which they do.
So Wyverns would have like a really sick GoPro-based YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Absolutely. So they eke out an existence as carnivorous predators that hunt from the sky, generally swooping down on any creature weaker than themselves, which is pretty much anything that, you know, isn't a magical monstrosity,
Yeah.
and devouring it. So
Okay.
that's wyverns for you.
So is it kind of like remember the coatl?
Yeah. What about
Is it,
coatl?
are they like? I'm kind of picturing something similar. Like, is it
Coatls they're way more powerful and highly intelligent.
Okay, yeah, but physically, like their look.
So with the coatl is mostly is basically a gigantic serpent with wings.
Yeah, and that's what this sounds like, but it has back legs.
But it has back legs.
Okay.
Also,
not too far
the
off.
coatl looks more like a serpent. The wyvern really does look like a dragon.
Okay, and that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
Okay.
And the coatl is not related to dragons in any way. As far as I know, it might be very, very distantly if it is.
Okay.
Though wyverns are known to be physically powerful and deadly foes that kill easily with their teeth and claws. The big part of their infamy comes from their legendarily potent poison that they inject people with their stinger tails. Yeah.
Oh man.
So this poison is said to be so powerful that it actually disintegrates veins and arteries on its way to the heart.
Oh
Like, it just
god.
melts through the body.
That's like brown recluse venom or something.
Right, very much so.
Shit.
That's actually a really good parallel. And the poison is highly prized and often sought after by alchemists or adventurers and whatnot.
Yeah,
So-
they want to dip their blow darts in it and shit and like kill you.
Right. So, and it would definitely fetch a high price on the black market. So, wyverns are, for the most part, neutral or unaligned, depending on the lore. They have a tendency to be depicted as just natural predator type creatures, so they don't really have an alignment. But there's also a nasty reputation for wyverns of falling on the neutral evil side of things. So, they have a violent nature, and paired with their relative lack of intelligence, it makes them deadly war mounts for evil forces who are willing to take the pains to subjugate them.
Right.
Which happens in a lot of fantasy. Like the evil enemy usually is riding upon wyvern back.
Yeah,
and
like
the
saddled
wyverns
up.
are vicious and mean. But also, wyverns tend to have an affinity for working with chromatic dragons and the forces of Tiamat. Now, I think this is mostly because I think the Dragon Queen herself kind of favors them. I think because of their viciousness and their usefulness, and so she kind of claims them. And you see this in the point of her taking the form of a 5-headed dragon with a wyvern tail. That's the thing. Tiamat has a wyvern tail.
That's just like that extra bonus, you know?
Right, exactly. And I think Tiamat makes a point to be like, no, these are mine. Like,
Okay.
and I think they fall into her sway quite easily.
I mean, if you want to like accumulate resources and stuff, like everybody wants a dog. So if these are dragon dogs, then like, what's up?
Fair enough.
She just Tiamat loves the equivalent is Tiamat loves dogs, and maybe we've been looking at her like as like a really gross, nasty thing, but she loves animals.
Nasty people can also love dogs.
Yeah, Hitler loved dogs.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he did. Who doesn't love dogs? Moving on. So humanoids are somewhat of a favorite food source for wyverns, for the simple fact that much like true dragons, wyverns themselves love to hoard things. And humanoids are the ones who tend to have things.
Okay,
so, yeah. Specifically, they like to hoard all the cliche stuff, the dragon, gold, gems, all that stuff.
I was going to ask about that. So they're just like, there's like a inherent like genetic disposition to collect in all
shiny
dragon
objects.
kind. Yeah, okay.
And you see this in kobolds. You see this in, you don't necessarily see it in Dragonborn, but I always love it when a Dragonborn player like, embraces the dragon greed kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's always fun. But I find it to be similar to a lot of birds. There are birds that really are attracted to grabbing shiny things and collecting them.
Yeah,
like crows,
ravens and
specific.
crows. Yeah.
So it's not unheard of for sure.
Okay,
like in the natural world.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen. Crows and ravens are dragons.
Right. So, yeah, they're distantly related cousins. Now, the life cycle of wyverns is not detailed out anywhere that I could find, but since they are raised from hatchlings by people who want to tame them, it stands to reason that they probably reach adulthood between 3 to 10 years.
Okay.
And if they're reaching adulthood that long, I don't think they're living more than a century. So I don't think they're getting the longevity that most dragons are getting. Now, I could be wrong on that. That's just my take because I couldn't find any substantial lore on the life cycle of wyverns.
Okay. That's interesting that isn't quantified somewhere.
It's one of those things where
they really hit it hard with dragons, like how long they live.
Very true. But wyverns, it's kind of like the mimic where it's like this iconic monster that everyone knows about so well that no one asks any questions.
Oh,
so
okay.
a lot of write-ups don't get really done on these things. And I was reading, there was a ecology on the Wyvern from Dragon Annual #1. And honestly, it was not very helpful because it was written in the style of like in character first person story.
Oh, okay. So you're not getting like the textbook details.
Exactly. You're really not. You're just getting a story about these adventures that had to deal with a Wyvern. I'm like, and that's cool and that's fun, but also wasn't useful for the show.
Yeah. You're seeing like power scaling for sure. Like, cause they're probably fighting it, I'm guessing.
Sure.
Or like encountering it at least and like getting an idea of what it can do.
Right. Pretty much.
Okay. But so like your Wyvern, it's not going to be your big bad evil guy, right? Like,
no, definitely not. I think Wyverns, for me, the way I love to use them is they're a great, truly random encounter. They're great to put on a random table because they can be anywhere. And if they see adventurers, they're probably going to attack. And they're powerful enough to be a freaking problem. I think they're challenge rating 6 or something like that.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have some issues there.
So it's a nice mini boss. It's a nice just random encounter between like towns or whatever to really like challenge your players and kind of a fun encounter. And you can even play with it, you know, like they fight the Wyvern, they defeat it, but one of the members gets stung and it's really bad and they have to get to town and it becomes this whole story thing. And like, so Wyverns are fun. I think they're really cool. And I highly encourage people to integrate them somewhere randomly into the campaign because they're really fun to
That's pretty
fight
cool.
with, yeah.
Yeah. On that point, like that's probably the reason why they don't see a need to quantify its age. Cause like, it's just this random
really
encounter. Yeah. Like you don't need to know. But if you do need to know in your campaign setting, just make it up.
One of the reasons that I'm surprised here's the thing. I'm sure that it has been quantified, their life cycle, but probably in like Forgotten Realms novels.
Oh,
because like
okay,
Wyverns
sure.
tend to get used as mounts. So I'm sure in some Forgotten Realms book where some party is using them as mounts, we're getting all kinds of dope Wyvern lore that you have to find that specific novel for, but like it's not in the actual supplement books.
It's like it's like one of the military units riding a wyvern is like petting its old ass wyvern. Like,
yeah, exactly.
She's an old girl, but she still rides strong.
Exactly. And then you can ask, well, how old? And then you get from the context of the book, oh, she's probably 60 years old.
Wild West campaign where everybody rides wyverns instead of horses.
So that being said, let's actually look at the stat block for the wyvern. I have it right here, and it's a pretty straightforward one. It's a challenge rating 6, like I said. Mm-hmm. It's got 13 armor class, natural armor, 110 hit points, which is pretty potent.
It's fairly strong.
Yeah, that's 1/6 of a Tarask.
Hey,
so there that is. It's got a multi-attack, which is really you could just choose from its bite, its claws, and its stinger. But let's look at the stinger. We're looking at a +7 to hit. And it does 2d6 plus 4 piercing damage. The target must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw or take 7d6 poison on a failed save. Have as much on a successful one. Oof, that's brutal. That'll knock out a character.
Yeah, you get stabbed in that pity.
Indeed,
it's over.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's the Wyvern. Nothing here else is like really noteworthy. You know, the bite does 2d6 plus 4 piercing. The claw does 2d8 plus 4 slashing. The multi-attack is just the Wyvern makes 2 attacks, 1 bite and 1 with its stinger. While flying, it can use its claws in place of another attack.
Nice. So, okay, that's pretty cool.
Now, I did read that Wyverns really like to attack from the sky, and they rarely land. And that's actually something you could do to make a Wyvern fight more threatening. Is if it's never landing and it's only swooping in for attacks, that can make it very hard to take down for a group of adventurers that are stuck on the ground.
Can you imagine fighting, like a wyvern in the forest? Like you chop down a tree for timber or whatever, and you for like campfire wood, etc. Mm-hmm. And it summons like you alert this creature. Mm-hmm. I would, in my flavor, I would have it turn by turn like emerge from it would swoop down into the trees out of sight. And then like weave through the forest trees and like come upon your campaign. It's like dope. Suddenly it's there. Yeah. You're like, what direction is it coming from?
Yeah, exactly. That'd be really cool. And even at higher levels, these things can really be used in the same scenario. You just, to up the power, it's like now it's a mating pair of wyverns. Oh. They're attacking in tandem. Yeah, there you go. Two challenge rating 6s. Yeah.
They were trying to make little baby wyverns, and you interrupted their coitus.
And they got hungry. So here they are.
They're all tired. We just finished our short rest after coitus. Time to fight.
Speaking of being tired, let's take our short rest.
Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to the part of the episode we're not talking about the last thing we're talking about. We're talking about love. I love you. I love you so much. and it's because you can hear my voice. And that means you're listening to the show, and I love that shit. Tell him, Will.
I do too.
He does too. He loves you. She's just a little shy about it. What do we want to talk about today?
Today, we just want to do a shout out to our gaming channel, TDC Plays. If you guys haven't checked it out, you guys should. It's us here at the Dungeoncast playing video games. Sounds good to me, I think.
Yeah, we're it's a little baby we're nurturing right now, and It's going to grow into something great where we schedule time for video games so we actually play them.
Indeed. So right now we have Pokemon Heart Gold run going on. We're playing a horror game called Outlast. Smash Brothers is on the way. We have plans for things like Shovel Knight, Skyrim, Legend of Zelda, all with people who are on the Dungeoncast, me and Brian, or people who are kind of tangentially related.
Yeah, like if you're in our Patreon, then you know who Josh and Jake are.
Yeah.
And probably Steve also.
Indeed.
All very much into video games.
Yeah. And right now, the two current games that we're playing now, I'm actually playing with my sister Kiki. She's also my best friend, so we have a blast playing all these games. It's fun to spend time with her. So,
some plans for me. Obviously, I've been talking a lot about Smash Brothers. That is on the way. As soon I got to get a capture card pretty much, and then I'm ready to go.
Indeed.
I might have one by now. I don't know. I'm getting one in January. So
I'm totally eyeballing to main Pokemon trainer. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. And so my other plans, I've decided. I don't think I've talked to you about this yet, but I'm a '90s kid at heart, and I really want to do all of the old platformers that I really love to play. So you're going to get a lot of Mega Man out of me.
Hell yes.
Particularly Mega Man X and Mega Man Zero. Yeah. So that's going to be real fun. It'll probably just be me doing solo stuff late at night when my baby can't sleep, or etc. But I think with all that, maybe we should get back to the show.
Let's get back to the show.
Let's get back to the show.
All right, we're back.
We've returned.
We talked about Wyverns, and now it's time to talk about Farie Dragons.
I like Farie Dragons.
They're pretty cool.
My favorite Farie Dragon I've ever I've never encountered a Farie Dragon in D&D.
Okay, I thought you were gonna say in real life, and that would also be true.
Kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh. Like in real life, there was a ancient Farie Dragon. Which was like a cool. There was an anime called Five Dragons or 5Ds where they played card games on motorcycles, and all the main characters had a dragon specific to that, like a unique card specific to them.
Okay.
And they did dope shit. And Ancient Farie Dragon did dope shit.
Oh, okay. So it was a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yeah, and we played it in the actual game Yu-Gi-Oh. It was a metagame card for a while.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, Farie Dragons and Dungeons & Dragons are essentially cat-sized dragons with butterfly wings rather than the classical leathery dragon wings. They have scales that are iridescent and reflect every color of the rainbow, but are predominantly colored based off of their age. So essentially, depending on like the stage of life the Farie Dragon is in, its primary colors will be different.
Okay.
The color of the Farie Dragon scales shift through the light spectrum with age, starting with red. So a newborn Farie Dragon will have a reddish tint to it, and then it will slowly but surely go through every color of the light spectrum before it ends its life on violet. So from I think age 50 on, Farie Dragons have a violet complexion.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So maybe even indigo. It's like the Twilight years or whatever. You
know those like the reflections in the prism, like red and stuff. They're also like temperature indicative. Like does the Farie Dragon is it like does that play into this at all? Like maybe while it's red, it's got more vigor and it's like
Well, I mean maybe because it's younger.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways.
Yeah, purple's like the cooler color. Maybe that's what they're going for in here. That'd
True,
be interesting.
but also when it comes to stars, it's actually kind of, even when it comes to fire, it's kind of reversed. Like the bluer the flame or the bluer and whiter the star, the hotter it actually is.
Yeah, I think
redder stars are actually cooler.
I might just be talking shit. But I think I know in the...
But I understand what you're saying.
God, I wish I remember his name. The scientist that was doing a lot of work with like the spectrum of light. Like he found out that you could break up with prisms, you could break it up into the whole spectrum, and he was measuring the temperature with thermometers and stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, it's too late now, but I will go research it after we are done recording.
All right, well,
research it.
As is their namesake, Farie Dragons are natives to the Feywild, although some do make their homes in forests and jungles in the material plane. Here they build their lairs, and they have layers just like normal dragons, from spider silk, leaves, and branches, and they snack upon bugs, berries, and flower nectar.
Cool.
Very whimsical, fairy tale-like creatures, as they should be. It's fairy and dragons and smashed together.
It's just some Fae bullshit.
Indeed, it's some Fae bullshit.
Bullshit.
Unlike wyverns, fairy dragons have a high, if not hyper intelligence level, much like true dragons. They can often speak multiple languages, the most common being like Draconic and Sylvan, because dragons and Fae, there it is.
Yeah.
Elven's another common one because, well, Fae.
Yeah.
And they have a fair amount of inherent magical abilities, which we'll get into.
Is it like you find one of these in the Feywild and you like fucking make a wish or something?
No, not really. Personality-wise, fairy dragons lie on the chaotic good side of things, and they have a reputation of merriment and mischief, but they're not really wish granters.
So they're not going to like monkey spa you even?
No, they're not going to monkey spa you. They're just going to probably play a prank on you and laugh about it. It's kind of their deal. They're generally good creatures, and they enjoy the company of good people, a good sense of humor, and they delight in treasures of like sweets, baked goods, and baubles.
Oh, okay.
They're just really whimsical, fairy-like, pixie-ish creatures.
They're just fucking eating scones.
Yeah,
you like come up on one that's got a
scones.
basket of scones it stole from somebody.
Indeed, exactly. and they would steal a basket of scones without a doubt.
It's just a fucking fairy dragon like dipping its biscotti into coffee.
There you go.
Like chilling.
That's hilarious. So, fairy dragons tend to take every opportunity that they have to wreak mischief upon passerbys using their illusory and enchantment capabilities. All the pranks will be relatively harmless and will often end with the fairy dragon giggling wildly as it reveals themselves from their invisibility spell.
Where are you going, Kayla? Don't worry, Mom. I'm just going out to wreak havoc and mischief on travelers. You know,
I don't know about havoc, but
just
definitely
like yesterday.
mischief. I feel, again, they're supposed to be harmless. There wasn't really any specifics given, but I picture it like, falling, like dropping stuff on people's heads or like causing like the illusion of like something sought after in the distance, and then like the adventurer goes after it but can never quite get to it.
Yeah, it like paints a tunnel on a rock and then goes through it, and when you try to follow it, you fucking hit a rock.
Yes, I could definitely see a fairy dragon doing exactly that.
So go watch an episode of fucking Looney Tunes,
Yeah, indeed.
and then make your campaign.
Yeah. Roadrunner.
Yeah,
it's a fairy
Wile E.
dragon.
Coyote.
So yeah, so that's the
God,
general
how fucked up must you
disposition.
be when like you paint a fake tunnel and then the person you're trying to trick goes fucking through it, and then you're like, huh? And then you go to do it, and it's a fucking like.
Right. That's hilarious. So most fairy dragons are, like I said, they're benign in nature, so they avoid conflict if they can. But their fury can be invoked if their lairs or loved ones are under threat, and they have abilities at their disposal for dealing with foes. So some of the inherent magical abilities that fairy dragons have are natural invisibility. They could just turn invisible as they wish. They tend to have telepathy, which can be used to fuck with people pretty potently. They have innate spell casting with spells such as like color spray, mirror image, hallucinatory terrain, and even polymorph.
Nice.
So they can actually get pretty powerful with the whole polymorph spell. They also have a breath attack. It's called euphoric breath, which is essentially a puff of gas that can bewilder, confuse, and befuddle its target.
Okay.
Which we'll get into when we look at the stat block, how it mechanically works. Plus, if push comes to shove, fairy dragon can bite you.
Okay.
Yeah, so there
Straight
it is.
up.
Yeah. Noms.
If it really wants to, it can punch you in the fucking face.
Indeed, very much so. As you would imagine, as being whimsical, merry, and generally good beings of the Feywild, they tend to ally themselves with pixie sprites, dryads, treants, and other fae.
Other fae bullshit things.
Other fae bullshit. Also other fairy dragons. Like I was reading that sometimes they'll like form groups and live in groups in the forest. Yeah. So... yeah.
You imagine getting like pranked by like a group of fairy dragons. Like at the end of the prank, they're all like laughing at you like in a group.
Right, exactly.
Great.
That'd be funny.
Feels like high school.
All in all, they're great NPCs to introduce in a Fae campaign.
Nice.
Like if you're running a Fae campaign and you don't throw in a fairy dragon just in some random encounter, what are you doing? They're really cool and they're fun.
They've magically written "kick me" on the back of your armor.
Indeed.
You're getting kicked by elves.
That's exactly what
druids.
Yeah. I think the elves would smirk, but I don't know if they'd actually kick you.
Okay.
Yeah. I imagine fairy dragons getting along quite well with the Eladrin. I see that being a thing.
Is there a lot of like accidental death in the Fae? I feel like pranks going wrong.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like killing gnomes and stuff. Like
whoops.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Like it says kick me on the back of your armor, and a fucking treant like just goes for it.
Right.
You die.
I can see it happening for sure.
And everybody's like, oh, bummer. Anyway.
So any questions about fairy dragons before we take a look at their stat block?
I think all my questions are stat related, which means the notes were good.
Oh, Well, thank you.
I mean, we've gone over so much Fae stuff at this point.
Yeah, you basically you have an understanding of like how they would basically be. Also, there's not a lot written about these guys, and a lot of stuff that so like there was a write up on Farie Dragons and the original monster manual of first edition, which is cool. But then when they were brought back at second edition, they just took that write up from the monster manual and reprinted it, added a couple things.
Okay,
and it kind of like the lore in Farie Dragons really kind of went through that same process like 5 times.
Where they're just like tweaking it per edition to like, we don't want to rip the same old thing, but we want this creature. I mean, it's a sound like you don't need a lot out of this.
True.
Where are the dragon behaviors here besides like, because it's a dragon, right?
The hoarding of their baubles and treasures, the breath, the intelligence, and the look is basically where that all is.
Okay,
and not true dragons, distantly related. It's said in some lore that Farie Dragons are essentially the Fae version of pseudo dragons, which kind of makes sense. I guess you can make the parallel between elves and men, really, at that point.
But wouldn't a pseudo dragon isn't like a permanent installment in the material plane, right? Like you have to summon them in, or
no, pseudo dragons are animals.
Okay,
yeah, they live and they're native to the material plane.
Okay, so literally, this is like, you know how fairies might be like small. They look like small people, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is just the dragon version of that.
Kind of. Well, that's what pseudo dragon is, and then the Farie Dragon's a Fae version of that.
The Fae washed version of the pseudo dragon. Okay,
you could argue that for sure. One thing that surprises me about the Farie Dragon is its lack of longevity. Like usually both things Fae and dragon live an extraordinarily long time, but Farie Dragons seem to have like a century-long lifespan.
These are the flies of the Feywild.
Basically, it would seem to be
super annoying, and like sometimes they bite you.
I think they're cool, but yeah. So let's look at the Farie Dragon stat block. So a lot of this I've already said. Like I already went over the colors. I already went over the spells. The invisibility, the telepathy. They also have magic resistance. The dragon has advantage of saving throws against spells and other magical effects.
Nice.
Which is very cool. They have a CR of 2. Actually, no. So their CR is a little bit different than other creatures. So red, orange, and yellow Farie Dragons have a CR of 1. Green, blue, and indigo, and violet Farie Dragons have a CR of 2. So basically, as they get older, they get more powerful. That's a very dragon-esque thing.
Yeah.
They have their bite and they have the euphoric breath. So let's go over the euphoric breath real quick because it's the most interesting thing about them. So +7 to hit, reach 5, 1 creature. On a hit, it only does 1 damage.
Okay.
But, actually, no, that was a bite. I'm sorry. Euphoric breath. The dragon exhales a puff of euphoric gas at 1 creature within 5 feet of it. Target must succeed on a DC 11 wisdom saving throw, or for 1 minute, the target can't take reactions and must roll a d6 at the start of each of its turn to determine its behavior during the turn. If you roll a 1 to 4, the target takes no action or bonus action and uses all of its movement to move in a random direction. 5 or 6, the target doesn't move, and the only thing it can do on its turn is make a DC 11 wisdom saving throw, ending the effect on itself on a success. Now, I think the idea here is the euphoric breath like puts them in a state of euphoria, but also of illusion, where the reason they randomly wander off in a random direction is because they see something that piques their interest, even though it's not actually there.
Okay.
So really, it really makes people useless upon hit of euphoric breath. Like that could be it for you.
I mean,
it could completely neutralize you for the rest of combat.
And you could run off like a cliffside or whatever.
Yeah,
like, this
that
could be
too.
real bad.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Because it makes you worse than useless. It actually makes you a detriment to the party because you're probably running away from the fight.
Yeah,
which is like worse than just standing there.
Right. Exactly.
Well, maybe.
And if you're just walking away from things, there's opportunity attacks.
It's just going to be the longest fucking combat if you're up in it with like 8 or 9 of these guys and like a 4-man team, and they're just like fucking breathing all over you.
Right.
Just like
but I mean,
super confused. You're burning turns.
At the same time, this euphoric breath is perfect for an out of combat kind of like a prank encounter.
Yes.
Where it's like the party gets hit by euphoric breath and all of a sudden everyone's hallucinating and you just have a whole like non-combat encounter on them dealing with their hallucination, which would be fun. I think that'd be really cool.
That is cool.
That's some Fable shit right there.
I mean, you could like just like, I think the prank would be better on like one of the party members at first for like a while, for like a leg of the journey, or just keep pranking the same guy over and over again.
Right.
Now we're going to prank everybody.
Indeed.
All right.
So they're kind of squishy. They have a good armor class of 15, which is pretty substantial for such a tiny dude.
Okay.
But HP is only 14 points. So
I feel like there should just be
one hit kills
like,
if you hit them.
These should just be, I always picture things in the Fae with the smaller CR and stuff, like size tiny, stuff like that. I always picture just a grip of them. Like you're never really And
gosh, a swarm of Farie Dragons, that's scary.
And a swarm in my eyes for this would be like five of them, 6 of them.
Yeah, a group of Farie Dragons. That euphoric breath is that's the thing about challenge rating is it doesn't really account for everything. And 5 euphoric breaths hitting your party is way higher than just 5 challenge rating 1s or 2s hitting you guys.
Yeah, is CR more like statistical based, like the hard numbers on the sheet?
That's exactly what the CR is based on.
So like you're weighing the AC versus the HP versus
a rough approximation made upon like the hard numbers that you got.
Yeah, so these abilities and like multi-attack might be included in there. Like, oh well, these abilities would make it like bump the CR a little bit,
right?
But it's really not capturing maybe all of the utility. That would be
difficult
kind of hard
to quantify.
do.
Difficult to quantify
because it's setting
sure.
specific. Like
Indeed.
what you're doing with this creature's ability as an NPC is really up to you.
Right. It's very much so.
Yeah.
So, any questions about Farie Dragons?
I mean, they're pretty cool. I had like a mental image of like purple Farie Dragons telling like a bunch of orange Farie Dragons to get off their phone.
Okay, yeah,
all,
sure.
like, mad about it.
That, yeah.
Goddamn millennials.
That's stupid. All right, well, with that being said, I think it's time to get ready for our long rest.
Let's get ready to rest forever. Not forever.
Just for a
like
day
8 hours.
So.
Yeah.
Or a week, depending on how you look at it.
I need my once a day back, which
Indeed.
is the making a podcast. That's making a podcast is my once a day in Faerie.
Indeed, it is.
So, what do we do in the short rest? TDC plays?
No, I believe today we need to talk about Super Quest Saga.
No, yeah, because we talked about TDC plays in short rest. Yes, let's talk about Super Quest Saga,
which is an ongoing cyberpunk space opera campaign.
Yeah,
right here on YouTube.
It's a saga. It's a quest. It's super good.
Yeah, exactly.
So we named it Super Quest Saga.
Indeed, we did.
Yeah, if you guys go watch it, you will be watching D&D 5e in space.
But in space, yeah.
And there's a lot of cool technology. Most of this campaign, I think, is reskins.
Reskins and homebrews.
Reskins
about 50-50.
Yeah. Except for the players, where we're all just like textbook out of the player's handbook, etc. Xanathar's guide. I know I plan on using as much Xanathar and Mordenkind and stuff as I can as a warlock.
Right.
I'm really impressed by the Xanathar's guide stuff for warlock, like the extra invocations and stuff.
Yeah, they definitely got a good power boost from Xanathar's.
Yeah,
for sure.
It was real cool. A lot of cool flavor stuff too. So we're in there. I love all our characters a lot.
Yeah. We don't really talk about like what classes you guys are playing. So like in this cyberpunk campaign, we have a warlock, a druid, and a paladin.
Yeah, we're keeping my warlock a secret, like what pact I took for as long as possible.
Oh yeah, for as long as possible.
Let's not spoil that.
Yeah, indeed. But also they're time displaced. So they're from the normal D&D world, but now they're stuck in this sci-fi adventure far, far in the future and completely out of their element.
Yeah.
So yeah, check it out.
We've run into some space tieflings, space elves, space illithids.
Space everything.
Yeah, space robots. There are robots. Asimov.
Oh yeah, Asimov.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, go check out Super Quest Saga. It's on our normal YouTube channel, the Dungeoncast. Like we said in the short rest, go check out TDC Plays. Thank you to everybody in the Discord. There's a link for the Discord below. We highly recommend that you go click that link and join our Discord and talk to us. Me and Will like to interact there. You can add us and we'll talk to you. And if you're on our Patreon, please check out the bonus content for the tier that you belong to. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. Early episodes. We have early episodes of this show as well as early episodes of Super Quest Saga, where you're gonna always have like 1 to 2 weeks of this show, and you're gonna have 2 weeks to a month of Super Quest Saga because we drop it bi-monthly.
Indeed.
And obviously this is a weekly show if you're listening. If you're listening. Yeah, I mean, is there anything else we want to talk about?
I don't think so. I think with that, we can call it a game.
Let's call it a game.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.
The Dungeoncast.